What is up everyone, welcome back to a review series of Men's Fashion Week. This time we are taking a closer look at Fall-Winter 23 shows from Paris Fashion Week. Once again, we are gonna cover 5 menswear shows. Of course, there are so many wonderful collections and it was a bit hard to make a selection. Anyways, today we are doing Dior Men, Givenchy, Saint Laurent, also Rick Owens and Dries Noten. Alright, let's jump right into the review. At Dior, Kim Jones designed an entire menswear collection inspired by poem The Wasteland by Thomas Stearns Eliot, a melancholic poem written in the aftermath of World War I. This poem is considered to be one of the most important poems of the 20th century and a central work of modernist poetry. Well, we all know how Kim Jones loves art and literature. In fact, he owns several copies of this masterpiece. Anyways, he brought in British actors Robert Pattinson and Gwendoline Christie to recite the poem. This set design was a massive screen with the faces of Pattinson and Christie. As the models walked past, the video flickered on screens and displayed close-ups of their garments and accessories. So, to give you more details why Kim Jones picked this poem is that Thomas Stearns Eliot's The Wasteland revolves around death, loss and renewal. Kim Jones took this as an inspiration and made a comparison to the history of Dior itself. He portrayed the era when the Christian Dior died and the young in Saint Laurent took over the reins of Dior. As Kim Jones explained, he wanted to look at the regeneration of the house after the death of Monsieur Dior and its rejuvenation with Saint Laurent, his chosen heir. Kim Jones also sees himself at the crossroads where an old Dior meets a new one envisioned by him, in change and in flux. Overall, the collection was done in pale and muted palette, so a lot of neutral colors on display. There was this vibe of looseness and fluidity, best expressed with layerings of transparent trails streaming from the backs of pants. Obviously, these details portrayed a continuous change and movement, similar to time in Dior history when Saint Laurent took over. The suggestion of flux came through also in the fabric. Sheer tanks were cut to the hip, flowing under soft-shouldered cream jackets and blazers. They were followed by iron knits, slit at the sleeves and hung off the arms like a cape. Here is what Kim Jones wrote in the show notes. The great river of London and Paris serve as living inspiration. Here the eddies and flows of the water reflect those of fashion, in which flux, movement, ease and fluidity are central. Indeed, a series of rippling trousers and knits in pale blue and sandy beige certainly evoked the soft-running River Thames. Of course, this notion of flux and soft-running River Thames is analyzed and contemplated by Eliot in The Wasteland's 13th stanza. Alright, as the collection progressed, it unveiled the pieces that Kim Jones borrowed directly from Saint Laurent's repertoire at Dior. He further spiced up those looks to his liking. Cocoon coats were slit at the sleeves and hung off the arms like a cape. Yet another references to Saint Laurent's time at Dior were the grey over-the-head wool tunics. Kim Jones elevated this fisherman's traditional workwear with modern touch. He transformed his models to Dior seafarers, dressed them in fisherman-inspired tunics, Wellington boots, calf-high socks, and fisherman hats. As the show progressed further, Kim Jones' references to water became more literal. He unveiled interesting and fun pieces such as short-sleeve vests inflated like life jackets. They were worn with super wide Bermuda shorts resembling schoolboy shorts. Yet another highlights of the collection were undoubtedly tweed kilts. They came in many different fabrics and shape, often paired with calf-high socks, shilling jackets and parkas. Other interesting pieces that Kim Jones sent out included one-shouldered draped knits, worn like a cloak and styled with wide-leg Bermuda shorts. By the way, super wide shorts were everywhere on the runway. Looks like these skirt-like shapes Kim Jones borrowed from women's wear and applied to menswear. Last but not least, let's have a look at the segment that referenced the times of Kim Jones at Dior. During his tenure, we saw the evolution of his distinctively tailored suit, thin-breasted, lapel-less, and minimal, with flowing pants. It has both Dior's captivating sensitivity and elegance. Alright, guys, what a beautiful way to explore the legacy of Yves Laurent and Dior. Kim Jones did that by drawing a parallel in literature via the modernist poem. Well, it's not the first time that Kim Jones has used a work of literature as an inspiration. He also referenced Virginia Woolf and Jack Kerouac in his past collections. This season, Anthony Vaccarello comes back with his fourth menswear collection for Saint Laurent. The show took place in the old Paris Stock Exchange, which now is a museum for contemporary art. In fact, French government leased it for 50 years to billionaire François Pinault, who is the founder of the luxury group Kering, and Saint Laurent is a part of the Kering group. Anyways, it was already clear from the last collection that Anthony Vaccarello was after a perfect genderless silhouette. Well, this collection is no exception. He unveiled drop-dead, elegant silhouettes massively inspired by Saint Laurent women's wear line. He said in the interview to the Vogue runway that he wanted to put men and women at the same level with no distinction. So women could be the men and the men could be the women. Overall, the collection was done mostly in black and muted palette, with the increasing overlap between his menswear and women's wear lines. Here in this collection, he focused more on the shapes and textures rather than color. The collection was dominated by glossy and slender overcoats, knitted tunics and tops, elegantly draped and wrapped, and of course, tuxedo jackets and suits. This collection can be also seen as a conversation between the old and new. It is easy to see if you look how the building's old historic upper walls contrast with its modern concrete foundations. This 30-foot high concrete cylinder inside the building is done by Japanese architect Tadao Ando. The opening segment unveiled the looks featuring a chiffon blouse with an exaggerated neck bow that was elegantly draped and wrapped. These women's wear inspired shirts were impeccably styled with wide-leg pants and a pair of slender and pointy shoes in glossy black. Yet another collection signature piece was a mohair turtleneck. In fact, it looked nothing like an ordinary turtleneck. It was super long in length, like a dress or a tunic, and featured super high neck. It was probably another statement from Vaccarello that gender in fashion can be irrelevant. They were often used as inner layers worn under wool overcoats and shearlings. Speaking of outwear, the runway was populated with slender and super long outwear pieces. This segment unveiled a wide array of double-breasted greatcoats. This in fact was highly expected. You may know from my previous reviews that this fall-winter fashion week was like a competition among designers over who had the greatest of long and lean greatcoats. As the collection progressed further, it brought chic looks with hoods. Seemingly, Anthony Vaccarello reinvented the founder's hoodie dress, also known as the capuche, and applied to menswear. Yet another statement from Anthony Vaccarello how women's wear can be applied to menswear was undoubtedly the segment that unveiled cowl front silk shirts. Those chest-revealing tops came in many different styles, often plunged into wrapped cummerbunds. Last but not least, let's check out a super original jumpsuit that Anthony Vaccarello sent down to the runway. Seemingly, it was a hybrid of a wide-leg jumpsuit and a trench coat. For sure, you don't see a piece like this that often. The show was closed by a look featuring Saint Laurent Les Smoking suit, which Anthony Vaccarello elevated even further with a see-through cape. Capes are yet another obsession from the Fall/Winter 23 Fashion Week. Alright, once again, Anthony Vaccarello delivered a drop-dead elegant collection with genderless silhouettes and super original and interesting shapes. With this collection, he blurred the lines between menswear and womenswear further. This collection channeled his vision of a world where menswear and womenswear are not apart, but instead they exist as one and complement each other. Maisie Williams presented his menswear collection for Givenchy at Paris Fashion Week. You may remember his previous collection was a subject of much criticism due to the excessive use of Givenchy logo. That for sure not the case anymore. He delivered super diverse and daring collection. It's not surprise that he loves to blend streetwear with formal clothing, and that's exactly what he did. He unveiled the collection that started with classic tailoring and clean silhouettes, followed by streetwear that looked almost experimental. By the end, he blended those two together and explored everything in between. When it comes to clear influences or inspirations for the collection, there was none. Maisie Williams doesn't like to follow any certain theme, and his approach is simple. He loves good clothing and believes that everything should be grounded in reality. Alright, the show opener section unveiled sharp tailored suits with clean silhouettes. These beautiful waist-accentuated suits featured squared-off power shoulders. Styling was done in an elegant manner with turtlenecks and gloves. Maisie Williams further elevated these looks by pointy shoes featuring Western heel. As he said, those fine black suits had been crafted in conjunction with Givenchy's couture atelier. Tailoring segment was followed by a series of oversized wool overcoats with massive power shoulders. They were styled with turtlenecks, Bermuda shorts, leggings, and a pair of calf-high leather boots that also resembled Wellington boots. The third segment of the collection brought super diverse and original looks, full of references across punk and workwear. Givenchy models walked the runway with cascading layers of reimagined staples, sometimes with 4-5 layers of garments. This segment unveiled some of the wildest looks of the show. Mesh knit sweaters were hidden beneath few layers of t-shirts and hoodies. Top layers often included skinny vests and cropped hoodies. Basically, this section was all about deconstruction and special treatment of the fabrics, from tartan wool to marked jersey, which Williams said echoed also a traditional Japanese technique. After the heavy and rugged segment, Maisie Williams tried to strike a balance by sending out a few sharp looks in suiting. Compared to suits from the show opener section, these ones were different. They were more relaxed with boxy fit. Suit jackets were lapelless and featured frayed hem. Up next, Maisie Williams unveiled a wide array of jumpsuits. They came in many different colors and fabrics, even in fake python leather. Styling was done in a manner that only bottom half was worn and the top acted as a skirt at the back. Looked like Maisie Williams took inspiration for this from the popular archival photo of Hubert de Givenchy, the founder of the house, wearing a sweater tied around his waist. Jumpsuits were followed by leather outfits. There was something about this look with a leather short jacket that Williams called a bouncer. This look featured rugged workwear boots, a minimal waistcoat, and bunch of accessories. Up next came shearling outfits. The runway was packed with shearling jackets, coats, vests, you name it. Shearling hoodies were paired with double-knee workwear pants. Shearling bomber jackets, on the other hand, were styled with leather jumpsuits. The culmination of the section probably was a look featuring a shearling jacket and aviation-inspired pants, seemingly inspired by military pilot pants from the World War II. In the last segment, Maisie Williams unveiled looks that blended streetwear and formal wear. He paired tuxedo suits with grungy hoodies and mesh knits. He did not stop there and sent out crisp tailored overcoats styled with workwear-inspired pieces, such as workwear boots, grungy jersey tops, and workwear skirts. Overall, it was super intense and diverse collection. Matthew Williams called this one of his favorite collections that he has done. When I first saw this collection, I thought it was a bit off, in a way that it somehow did not feel like typical Givenchy collection, especially the segments that unveiled heavily layered punk and workwear-inspired looks. And then I tried to be more open-minded and rewatched it again and suddenly fell in love. For sure, massive work. What you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Rick Owens continues to be inspired by ancient Egypt. He named his Fall/Winter 23 collection Luxor, after the ancient city in southern Egypt. As he wrote in the show notes, the city of Luxor has become his winter retreat. Looks like Rick was highly inspired by ancient monuments and temples of Luxor. He used those architectural shapes for the collection. Another inspiration for architectural shapes come from the 1950s movie The Ten Commandments. Rick watches this on repeat almost every day. Yet another inspiration was British 19th century Victorian era, in particular Victorian silhouettes. As Rick explained, there was a lot of prudishness and suppressed sensuality in Victorian era, but all of that was done in such an elaborate way that he could not stop thinking about it. Similarly, Rick did this collection in a way that the pieces of clothing to conceal the wearer's body, but they also expose and accentuate other parts. Once again, this show took place in Palais de Tokyo, Rick's favorite spot. He raised the catwalk that looked like an industrial scaffolding. There were also Rick's favorite fog machines in action underneath. This show was opened by Tyron Dillon. The first look instantly encapsulated the overall feel of the collection. Tyron wore a black cape with lengths finishing at the ankles. This look was styled with gloves, side-slit shorts, and a pair of thigh-high leather-kissed boots. Looks like this season's Obsession capes found the way also to the Rick Owens runway. Rick unveiled 3 types of capes. First 2 types were more or less similar in terms of length and shape. They clenched to the chest and then went swinging free. They were styled over a sleeveless tunic that featured leather panels inserted at front. Other types of capes looked shorter and more voluminous. They did look like capes that women wore in Victorian era in Britain. The magic and mystic feel of those looks were intensified by contact lenses that blacked out models' eyes. There were also black paint stripes across the model's eyes and cheeks. Another collection highlights were flight jackets. They came in many different shapes and fabrics. Wool bomber jackets were cropped in a way that they accentuate model's waist. Massively exaggerated shoulders and tight high waist that flared almost to the ankle resembled Victorian hourglass silhouette. Up next came nylon bomber jackets. They featured Rick Owens' signature split zip hood. As Rick wrote in his show notes, those jackets are made from recycled polyamide and they are dyed with bamboo charcoal for black, while green is achieved using olive waste. Rick unveiled yet another type of light jackets, this time shaggier and lengthier version. Colors of choice were green, purple, and chocolate. These jackets sometimes featured spiked shoulders. Rick came up with spiked shoulders in his previous Edfu collection as a reference to the falcon god Horus. Alright, as Rick explained, these shaggy jackets are made from heavyweight, unshaven cowhides that are tanned according to high environmental standards. These looks were elevated further with midi A-line skirts that featured a shredded and frayed hem. Rick Owens still continues to make jackets from pirarucu fish leather. By recycling these giant skins, indigenous communities in Brazil are able to receive a significant income from something that would normally be discarded. Up next, Rick unveiled more flight jackets, this time lengthier version in denim. They came stained and thoroughly shredded. As Rick explained, these spike-shouldered blouses are in 18-ounce Japanese indigo selvage denim. The most original, simple and fun item from this collection was a duvet donut. So the idea here is that you just kinda slip on over your shoulders and it turns into a jacket. Looks like Rick was trying to reduce a garment to the simplest form it could be, so he came up with a duvet donut. It's sculptural, functional, so reduced and simplistic. Duvet donuts were followed by a short segment that brought oversized shilling coats to the runway. Mood here was super cozy. These pyramid-paneled hooded shillings were heightened by the handbags. They added a certain vibe that kind of evened out the cozy feel of the shilling. In terms of tailoring, Rick Owens presented super simple and minimalist looks, focusing on shapes and silhouettes. Impeccable suit jackets were cropped and paired with skirts. Others were lengthier and waist accentuated, often paired with skirts and super wide-leg nylon pants. Lastly, let's have a look at footwear. Because the runway was raised, the audience had a really good view to check out the footwear, which mostly included thigh-high Kiss boots. They looked the chunkier version with added transparent heel. Rick also presented a new orthopedic variation of his glamorous Kiss boots. They were updated with leather straps across the leg and foot area. There were yet another variation that came without a heel. They did look like gladiator boots. Probably you guys noticed that with this collection, Rick Owens went back to his roots of black and muted palette. He disregarded colors in this collection on purpose. He wanted to focus on the shapes and architecture of this collection. In terms of the silhouettes inspired by Victorian era, he compared them and envisioned them as a reflection of a primness we see in a prevalence of current online judgment. Rick Owens' outfit when he appeared shortly at the end of the show was also inspired by hourglass silhouette from Victorian era. Dries Noten presented his Fall/Winter 23 Menswear collection in a parking garage in Paris. Oddly enough, his last collection also took place in a parking lot on the roof. It's not only a parking garage that Dries Noten is quite fond of lately, it's also rave culture that he can't get enough. He closed his last show with one of the classics from 90s trance, The Age of Love. He did not stop there and continued to explore 90s rave culture further. He threw a hidden show/rave in an old parking lot in Paris for his new menswear collection. As I heard, his guests were greeted at each floor by some experimental beats and chilled beer. Different from a traditional show, there was no seats, so everyone stood while watching the show. At the center, there was a synthesizer and a set of electric drums. That was a spot for super talented musicians who delivered an amazing live performance. Besides the 90s rave culture, the collection was also inspired by the beauty of nature, in particular botanical prints. As Dries Noten explained, this collection is all about the energy and self-expression of rave parties in the 90s, but mixed with beautiful, surreal elements of nature. His starting point here was a book he read last summer about Alexander von Humboldt, a German geographer, naturalist and explorer, and the man credited with having invented the concept of ecology. The collection itself was super diverse, dominated by outwear pieces. The runway was packed with wool overcoats presented in many different shapes and silhouettes. Of course, Dries Noten did not miss the chance to compete with other designers over the greatest of long and lean greatcoats this season. He sent out a killer contender, a double-breasted wool greatcoat with slightly exaggerated shoulders and a distinctly nipped-in, almost all-time Hollywood movie star waist. This is what he told to Vogue Runway in the backstage. "We worked a lot on the silhouette, so you have this very precise shape in the tailoring of this coat. The narrow waist here hints also at a historical aspect. A piece like this can make you wanna linger to analyze what's significant about it." Yet another highlight from the tailored segment was suiting. Dries Noten unveiled a wide range of suits in diverse shapes and silhouettes, oversized, slim, waist-accentuated, you name it. With its strong shoulders and a raised waist, suiting here had a subtle retro allure and a masculine swagger. It was spiced up and elevated further with abstract patterns that channeled also 90s party spirit. Alright, speaking of parties and nightlife, those vibes were conveyed by roomy pants with multiple pockets and straps. There were also lacy knits, mesh tops and jackets with swirly prints. Rave fashion in 90s was dramatically different than what we have today. It was louder, psychedelic and colorful with lots of patterns. There is something though about Belgian designers and their fascination for youth subcultures. Good example here is Raf Simons. You may remember his last show culminated in a giant warehouse rave in London last fall. When it comes to nature and botanical prints, Dries Noten was inspired by the works of German geographer and naturalist Alexander von Humboldt. We see this clearly not only in clothing but also in footwear. Dries Noten sent out looks with fairy cloaks and sandals that channeled the spirit of flora and fauna. Anyways, he blended his passion for botanics and nature to his love for rave cultures. Once again, his collection was super fun and highly elegant. Alright guys, that sums up today's video pretty much. Hope you enjoyed the review and got something out of it. Again, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.